Hello, everybody. Right, well, we're back now, so we'll just wait for the clock to tick over to 10 o'clock and then we'll make a start. But thank you all for your patience. There is a new link on the website if anyone is wanting to listen in, which you can do so via that link. So it's now 10 o'clock. Apologies for the delay, but please can I welcome everyone to this meeting of Cabinet. It's being held under the regulations which came into effect on the 4th of April 2020 in response to the COVID-19 situation. My name is Councillor Lucille Thompson. I'm Chair of Cabinet and Leader of the Council. Just a few housekeeping reminders as we run through. Because of the new working practices. First of all, can I ask everyone present in this virtual meeting that your microphones remain muted and your camera is turned off whilst you're not addressing the meeting. This will reduce background noise and any unintentional disturbances. Please can I also advise that the open parts of the meeting are being audio recorded and live streamed from the Council's website, and in addition a video recording of the meeting will be updated on the Council's YouTube channel after the meeting. Cabinet members and officers, where appropriate, for each item can you use the chat function of the meeting to indicate that you wish to speak or raise a point of order or explanation, and I will then invite you to speak. Each member will be invited to speak in turn, therefore I'd encourage all members to keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. And when speaking and referring to the agenda items, please can you make sure that you reference the page number or paragraph number. Thank you. This is, as you know, a virtual meeting. The duration is roughly 2 hours. We do have quite a lot on the agenda today, so I'm expecting that we might go over that, so apologies if we do. Finally, if Cabinet members wish to leave the meeting at any point, could they please make themselves known to me through the chat function? I will then announce to the meeting that you are leaving. So first of all, can I ask Democratic Services Officer Nancy Graham, please, to undertake a roll call of members of Cabinet to confirm who is present in the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. If I can ask Cabinet members to unmute their microphones and turn on their cameras just to confirm their presence. Obviously, I can see Councillor Thompson, you are present.
Yes, present.
Councillor Cutler.
Yes, I am present.
Councillor Ferguson.
Good morning. Yes, I'm present.
Councillor Lerney.
Good morning. Present.
Councillor Murphy.
Good morning. I'm present.
Councillor Porter.
Good morning. Present.
Councillor Prince.
Good morning. Present.
And Councillor Todd.
Good morning. Present.
Thank you. That's all members of Cabinet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And obviously there were no apologies for absence, but I just wonder whether you could read out a list of officers who are also present.
Yes, of course, Chair. We have in the room with us Laura Taylor, Chief Executive. Virtually joining us, we have Lisa Kirkman, Strategic Director Resources, Richard Botham, Strategic Director Services, Chaz Bradfield, Strategic Director Place, and also from Legal, Catherine Knight, Service Lead Legal. Other officers are, just checking down the list, Neil Aitken, Finance Manager, Rob Sarfus, who's joining us from the County Council, Amy Trinar, Service Lead Transformation and Procurement, Andy Hickman, Head of Programme, Mandy Ford, Programme Advisor, and Dick Johnson, Finance and Resource Manager Housing. I don't think I've missed anybody off, but apologies, I'm sure somebody will let me know in chat if I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, next up is membership of Cabinet committees, and I don't believe we have any changes. Am I correct?
That's correct, Chair.
Yeah, okay. Item number 3, declaration of interests. Has anyone got any interest to declare? Councillor Porter.
Thank you. Just the personal interest as a county councillor as well. I don't believe it affects anything that I'm discussing today.
Thank you very much.
And the same for me.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you very much. Okay, item number 4 is to note any requests from councillors to make representations on agenda items. I have a list of councillors wishing to speak, and I will call them at that appropriate agenda item. I'm sure that's what we normally do, and that will be acceptable. Okay, item number 5 is minutes of the meeting we held on the 20th of January. Cabinet, are we agreed that they are a true reflection of what we just...
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed? Thank you very much.
Agreed.
Thank you. Okay, item number 6 is public participation, and I can see Chris Holloway already on our screens. Thank you for joining us, and sorry you had to wait a while before you said your piece, but public participation. Chris Holloway, the floor is yours. Please speak to us.
Thank you very much, and thanks for allowing me to speak, and my commiserations with the IT crisis. I've been caught in something like that myself. It's horrible. As you know, I'm chair of Winchester Action on Climate Change, and we're very pleased to be working on the climate crisis with the City Council in a role as a critical friend, but also as a partner with expertise to offer and ideas to contribute. And I've just got 3 points to make this morning. And actually covering 2 different items on the agenda, but both with a climate theme. But first, the council plan. We were pleased to see the council's continuing commitment to taking action on the climate emergency. Thank you. And in WINAC, we've been putting a lot of energy into identifying where it makes most sense for us and indeed the council to focus. And so we welcome your emphasis on transport and on renewable energy. And we'd like, if you could add some reference to the need to make existing buildings more energy efficient. The second thing which links is the capital investment strategy, which I'm afraid I found rather baffling, particularly Appendix A, which sets out your forecast spending until 2030, which is, of course, also the target date for reaching net zero carbon. I would have expected, and I'm afraid this is a really hackneyed phrase, but I would have expected to see this golden thread running through from the council plan to the council spending plans. And yet these capital investment strategy papers look as if they were written for a council with a completely different council plan. I mean, I realise that you've classified lines in the budget according to which aspect of the plan they contribute to. And I realise that isn't easy because things overlap, like do you put retrofitting council housing under housing or under climate change? But even allowing for that ambiguity, the percentage spent on the climate is far too low for you to be able to reach your target. And even more important, the strategy should say how much money you need each year to meet your target to reach net zero by 2030. When you look at it, there are very few items which are carried forward for all the future years. For example, one of the few spends that is forecast is car parks. And I thought, well, congratulations to the officer who's responsible for car parks for getting it in, but where are all the others? Unless you know roughly what the council needs to spend, for example, on improving pedestrian routes or replacing council heating, then there's the risk that all the money gets gobbled up in advance before you've got the climate things written into it, maybe not by car parks, but by other things that are carried forward from the past. So the financial strategy, I would have expected to have been much clearer about what you think you need to invest in reducing global warming. My third point, I'm actually want to address to all the councillors and not only to the cabinet, and it's a very brief point. When the council declared a climate emergency, everybody supported it, all the councillors. It had support from you all. And I want to ask you to support now not only the declaration, but also the actions, the things that are in the council plan and the things that are developing in the carbon neutrality action plan? Could you support the declaration and the actions and the budget that you need to meet your target? I've said many times, we can't allow the climate emergency to be a political football. I invite you all, whatever party, to work with WINAC and with each other so that we can agree a programme of action on the most important priorities. This is the time for us all to act with courage in unity to protect life on Earth. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Chris. Those comments, I've noted them down, and I thank you for your support for the actions in the council plan, and I do take on board what you said about the capital strategy. And I'm sure Councillor Cutler, when we come to that paper, he will have something to say about that too. So thank you very much for your contribution and for your support in what we're all trying to do together. That's most helpful. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We now move on to item number 7, which is announcements. I don't have any announcements, but I do know that Cabinet members have. And first of all, I'm going to call on Councillor Porter.
Thank you very much. And it's a shame we've started a little bit late, but glad to see we're on the way now. My first announcement is about Your Place, Your Plan. It's the title given to the consultation process on the Local Plan 2038, which begins on Monday, 15th of February. So the pandemic lockdown means we'll have to plan this online. And so there's a special website, www.localplan.winchester.gov.uk, and it'll go live on the 15th of February. And it'll be running until the 12th of April, and responses will close at midnight on that day. There'll be online events, a variety of shorter and longer feedback events. And don't worry if you don't have access to the internet, you can call 848 508 for some help and advice. We particularly welcome responses from young people. It is going to go up to 2038 after all. So that's the first one, www.localplan.winchester.gov.uk. It's Your Place, Your Plan. And the second thing is rather more depressing really, but I'm really pleased to say that fly tipping, which had unfortunately a dramatic increase in the number of reported items during lockdown, and we've taken the action that now all of the neighbourhood services team are trained to go and inspect all of those fly tipping incidents and inspect them for evidence. So we are really actively prosecuting, particularly since the courts have reopened, every single case that we can find any evidence within it. We're also marking it very clearly now with a distinctive Winchester City Council coloured sticky label, so people understand exactly that that particular site's been seen already, and so we hope we won't get lots and lots of multiple people having to call up about the same fly tipping incident. So prosecutions have recommenced since the courts went back into session, and ward councillors are now informed as a matter of course if convictions are in their area. So our message to fly tippers is don't. You will continue to be pursued vigorously to pay back for what you've done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Porter. I now call on Councillor Ferguson.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I have 2 announcements today as well. First of all, I wanted to announce that this week we've launched a new £240,000 hardship fund as part of the discretionary grant funding that we were awarded by the government to support businesses during the pandemic. The hardship fund is in addition to the discretionary grant funding round that is currently open for businesses. This fund is aimed at those businesses within the district that, despite having received other COVID-related government support, or perhaps because they've been ineligible for this support, remain severely impacted by the pandemic and the ongoing restrictions, and they may be at real risk of closure. Individual grants of up to £10,000 are going to be made available, and applications will be looked at on a case-by-case basis. Our aim throughout the pandemic, with the funding that we've been given, is to support as many businesses as we can across the district. Full details of this hardship fund can be found on the business pages of the City Council's website, and the application process will go live on Friday. So that's the first one. The second one is also a consultation. We announced this week that we've launched an online consultation about the provision of digital services in the Winchester district. And I'd really like to encourage as many people, businesses, leaders across the district, stakeholders, students, young people to get involved in the survey. We've known for some time that access to high quality digital services are playing and will play an ever growing and critical role in the economic health and resilience of the district. But I think what COVID-19 pandemic has shown is that there are changes in the way we work, shop, access services, indeed how those services are being provided. This ability to embrace digital technology has become even more important. So through this consultation, we want to hear from people, businesses, as I said, community leaders, students, anyone right across the district about their experience of digital connectivity during the pandemic. What have the advantages been? What have the challenges been? Where have there been barriers? And as well as that, we want to hear your views about the introduction of 5G, how you think it could benefit you, the city and the district as a whole. The consultation is already live and details can be found in the Citizen Space section of the Council website. It runs till the end of March and I hope as many people will take part as possible. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Prince. Councillor Prince?
Sorry, I'm not as adept with my camera and microphone as I should be. Anyway, I'm going to talk about grants. I'm particularly pleased to report this week that we have recommenced the process for approving small grants. It is most reassuring that the initial 5 applications each had either support for the recovery from the pandemic or an element of the climate emergency included. We will be announcing the first successful applications in 1 week and a further panel will be held in 2 weeks for additional applications. Finally, members' attention is drawn to both the availability of small grants and the crowdfunding scheme. Further information can be obtained from Melissa Fletcher. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Prince. And Councillor Lerney.
Not today, thank you, Chairman.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay, apologies. Okay, in that case, we move on to the main agenda and item 8, the general fund budget on pages 13 to 38 of the agenda pack, CAB 3289. And Councillor Cutler, would you like to introduce the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Leader. This budget paper is a follow-up to the paper presented in December to Cabinet. That paper detailed the significant financial pressures facing Council as a result of the COVID pandemic and presented options for producing a balanced budget. This paper provides an update to that paper and includes details of the government's settlement in December, and it also presents firm proposals for a balanced budget for the Cabinet to recommend to Council. We continue to base the budget calculations on a fall in income of 20% in 21-22. but recognise that this figure could be subject to a wide variance due to the uncertainty around the easing of coronavirus restrictions and the speed at which the economy will recover. This income fall created a projected deficit of 3.7 million in the December paper, but with funding from government confirmed in the spending review settlement, the projected deficit falls to just over 3 million. Further ring-fence funding has also been made available for COVID-related expenses and additional council tax hardship funding. The paper details some additional expenditure proposals at section 15, including provision for both the movement strategy and for the Meadowside Leisure Centre, the paper of which follows. At section 16 in the paper, and also in detail at Appendix B, are the proposals for operational savings of £3.069 million, consisting of £1.113 million in staff savings, 1.308 non-staff operational savings, and a further 648,000 of other savings. You may have noted that section 17.1 says that this section will be updated before dispatch to Cabinet. So I can confirm that the text should read at point 17.1, the business rates collection fund is forecast to be balanced by the end of 2021. A technical collection fund deficit is expected to be balanced off by section 31 government grants. This means that a claim to government for 75% of any losses occurred is not expected to be made, and there will be no losses to spread over 3 years. Effectively, this means that there is no material impact on the rest of the report from the business rate figures. The base budget includes a recommendation for an increase of council tax of 3%, which equates to £4.29 on Band D premises. These proposals provide for a balanced budget by making the full savings needed against a projected income fall of 20%. This allows the council to maintain its financial resilience in the face of the great uncertainty facing us in the coming year, and we will be able to swiftly adapt to rapidly changing circumstances, but at the same time giving us the capacity to continue to maintain and improve service delivery and to deliver the objectives of our council plan. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cutler. I have two councillors who've indicated to speak on this item, and the first one is Councillor Horrell. Good morning.
Good morning, Lucille. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. So thank you, Leader and Chairman of Cabinet, for allowing me to speak this morning. And a very big thank you to the officers for their work that they put into managing the finances through a really turbulent year. And yes, it has been tough, and we must have a balanced budget. But we have indeed received significant funds from government, for which we're most grateful. And indeed, I read in the report, we're recommending moving some of the latest COVID-19 related support monies to the transitional reserve. So all is not quite as bleak as we might think. We are a council, unlike many others, still supporting the arts, giving grants to our local communities, delivering new and improved sport and leisure facilities at Bar End and Meadowside, still working with our climate change objectives, and still holding significant reserves. Sadly, despite this, it is clear from the strategy employed in the budget before us today that the residents of the district must pay at every turn. New fees and charges, increased fees and charges, a council tax rise, and so the list goes on. What I don't understand is why we're hitting the pockets of our residents during these challenging times in such a hard manner. It is the staff who've also been impacted despite all they have done in the last year. We have put plus 20 heads on our list of removal in this budget. And not just tidying up of posts maybe not filled and vacancy factors, but has removed from key services such as housing, planning and revenue and benefits. In contrast, I do not see the effort of this administration to bring income into the council from the very considerable assets we own, perhaps apart from the recent changes at the Guildhall, which are to be welcomed. We are still talking about central Winchester after 2 years when we already had a fully supported supplementary planning document to develop the site. Unacceptable dither and delay. How do we think taking 2 million from the major investment reserve is going to redevelop the site when already the King's Walk figure alone is 4 million? These things just don't add up. How is it that we have buildings standing empty and not generating cash? How is it that projects approved in 2018 and 2019 by the Conservative administration have not yet started? This shows a lack of ability to take decisions, sometimes difficult decisions we know, and actually get things done. We need to stop reviewing and actually do things to bring resources into the council to support the services we need to deliver for the public. And so this budget is failing to do that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Horrell. I now call on Councillor Lumbey.
Thank you, Leader. I'm just having some technology issues of my own here, so I think the servers are not helping us. Right, I think I'm in the right place. Okay, thank you. Can you all hear me? Is that okay? Is it clear?
Yep.
Yes, perfect, Larry, thank you. Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to address Cabinet today. I will be prompt, as Councillor Horrell has ably covered the main points, and I, of course, had the opportunity to discuss this at Scrutiny Committee. And on that note, I'm glad to see that the report has at least been amended from Scrutiny to make it clear that there is to be no further increase this year in charges for waste collection. Of course, it is regrettable that there is any charge at all on what I've said all along is a retrogressive step. A fixed charge for waste collection takes no account of ability to pay and, as we have seen, hits the people least able to pay the hardest. My inbox has been filled with complaints on that front, and I'm sure other councillors have the same experience. So it's regrettable that there are no steps being taken to ameliorate this by providing help to those hardest hit by this unfair charge. I have seen Councillor Murphy refer in correspondence to a review of this charging. When will this be carried out, and will it be carried out in an open and transparent manner? The point, however, I'd like to focus on today is the reduction in the size of the planning team, as referred to in Appendix B. This refers to a reduction of 3.5 posts. It acknowledges that there will be some impact on development management service. It also says that the enforcement team has been strengthened, which I assume refers to the new leadership following the recent departure of 2 members. As I said at Scrutiny, I consider this to be a huge mistake. I've spoken over the last year to many members of the planning team, including building control, planners and enforcement. What comes through clearly is a team struggling with too much work, feeling underappreciated and stressed. Better paid jobs are available elsewhere, and it's testament to their loyalty that more haven't taken them. The service is frankly creaking and in danger of collapse. And many of us, especially in the rural areas, will know from my inboxes about the issue that enforcement are facing. Time and time again, we see reports in the press of problems where enforcement have not had the time or resource to deal with issues. The view of many now is that one may as well get on with work as enforcement won't do anything about it. Disregard of the rules is becoming more and more flagrant. See, for example, the reports on Dradfield Lane or the recent reports relating to Siviers Lane in my ward. Yes, this is not new. It's a trend that's been allowed to continue for far too long. We need a much strengthened team with a mandate to act. Then people will realise there is no benefit in ignoring the rules and will comply. In a culture of compliance, less enforcement will be needed, but that is for the future, not now. Councillor Porter talked to scrutiny about changes to make the service more efficient, but this simply isn't good enough. Our hard-working officers are really struggling to keep the show on the road, and enforcement are totally under-resourced. Now is the wrong time to be cutting posts. I know it is the policy of the administration to say that everything is wonderful and never to admit some things aren't working, in the same way as the default position of blaming the Conservatives for anything that isn't perfect. That's politics. But now is not the time for this. We have real issues and we need to act before it's too late. So please reverse this decision and in addition put more resource into enforcement. And please act urgently to support and appreciate our existing officers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lumby. Okay, members of Cabinet, have you any comments to make or any questions? Councillor Porter.
Thank you. As the portfolio holder for planning, I think I must respond to Councillor Lumby. When the staff changes were proposed, they were fully endorsed by the management team and the strategic director, and I think that that's important because we are here to make sure that the process by which planning takes place is to the legal limits, and we work very closely to those. I think that he raised the point about scrutiny. In fact, Councillor Brooke also agreed with me that enforcement compliance is never easy and that more resources are not necessarily the answer to this, although we have put in a considerable amount of resources into enforcement and continue to do so. The management team had vacancies, as you mentioned, and we have always had a system whereby we allow the public to have a long conversation about the way in which their planning application is going. And so the work for a single application or for a multiple one can take much more time than was ever envisaged by the planning team and the planning system as it stands. And so we have introduced the pre-planning system so that people have the opportunity to pay for a small amount of time to go through the application before it is finally taken to planning. I don't think that it has changed the way in which we work so significantly yet, because the pandemic has created a different position, but certainly that is the intention as we go forward, and the number of staff that are there all know that they're deeply appreciated by me and the whole cabinet and their own bosses. So I please don't push the fact that they aren't appreciated. They most definitely are.
Thank you very much, Councillor Porter. Any further? Councillor Lerney.
Thank you. I too wish to respond to some of the comments that have been made. I am fascinated that at a time of financial crisis, the Conservatives believe that we can fill substandard buildings with tenants without spending considerable money and putting significantly more public funding at risk. The prudent approach we've taken to development projects is paying off, with taking an incremental approach and ensuring that we can react rapidly to changing market conditions. We're progressing schemes such as Bishop's Waltham, where I'm pleased to say, Councillor Lumby, that we anticipate the contractors being on site in the middle of March. They already have site possession, with completion near the end of this year. The Guildhall was mentioned, again a project that we're able to progress. I'm pleased to say that we're seeing significant confidence in the council as a landlord. Tenants are being very complimentary about the approach we're taking. When we look at councils such as Croydon and many of the other authorities which are now in financial difficulty, they illustrate that you can't just borrow and spend your way out of trouble. You couldn't do it a few years ago, and even more so, you can't do it now. I'm really delighted with the budget that we've been able to present today in such difficult circumstances. Clearly, nobody's happy about the need to retrench in certain areas, but some of that is about smarter working. It's not just around going, oh, we're going to do less. We do need to do less in some areas, but I haven't seen a single proposal come forward from the Conservative group that would actually make any significant impact on the financial crisis we're facing. It's simply, you know, platitudes. If you've got any firm proposals, then we'd love to hear them, and please come forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lerney. Councillor Todd.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'd just like to quickly talk about where we are on garden waste and what our plan is in terms of value. I suppose the start point is to say that I said in response to a question from Councillor Scott back in July that we do intend to review the affordability of the garden waste scheme as soon as we are able, and the strong results in terms of helping to achieve the to cover the cost challenge that was associated with the County Council's decision to take away £500,000 or to budget to take away £500,000 a year of income has already been achieved. I mean, let's not forget how we ended up in this situation. 2 years ago, there were 2 councils left in the whole of Hampshire that weren't charging for garden waste. The County Council then decided to take away the income that we received for increasing recycling, £500,000 worth, and I can say as a county councillor that intention is still in the budget. As a result, every single council in Hampshire, without exception, has ended up being forced to move to a chargeable garden waste system. Throughout, we've had a very strong focus on ensuring that we do this as affordably as we possibly can for local people. Let's not forget that our average, our cost for signing up to the service is more than £15 less than the average in the rest of Hampshire. Indeed, there's only one council cheaper than we are. In Test Valley, it's £35 versus us at 39. But we are making good progress on our revenue expectations. We've sold 12,667 bins. We're over 3/4 of the way towards covering the cost of the waste collection contract, and that will give us options as we look to the future to consider how we evolve our charging in the light of achieving those income expectations and covering the financial hole that was imposed on us as a result of the County Council's decision. So, you know, this was a charge that we were effectively forced to introduce in response to the County Council's £500,000 charge. It is a charge which we have kept as low as we can. And it is a charge that we will look to see if there are ways of offering lower costs to people under financial pressure in the future. And there are not any other councils, I think, in Hampshire at this stage who would be able to say that. So I think that's a key point that we need to get across, and I'd like to pay real tribute to the officers who have worked incredibly hard, whether in communications, whether in IT, whether in the call centre, or whether in the waste team, to get us to this point where we look set to have the options that we talked about and the value offer that I promised back in July, and it's only as a result of all their hard work that that's possible.
Thank you very much, Councillor Todd. Any other Cabinet members who either wish to ask a question or comment? Or Neil, you've come up, Councillor Cutler, you've come up on the screen, or shall we go, is there any debate?
Yeah, Lucille, I've only come up to say that I'm happy to sum up before you go to the recommendations, okay, and to comment on some of the questions that have been made. But if anyone else wishes to speak before, then happy to wait.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands. So Councillor Cutler, please go ahead.
Well, I think thank you, Leader. I think my colleagues have answered the comments from Councillor Horrell and Councillor Lumby adequately. I suppose I'd like to add that Councillor Horrell has talked about staffing costs. She knows that staffing costs are our direct staffing costs are 15.5 million at the moment out of a total budget of 33. So the proportion of reduction in staff is actually a smaller percentage than the total savings we're making. And she knows that there is no way that those savings can be made without impacting on staff levels. So we've had no constructive comment from either councillors as to where else they would make those savings. Councillor Lumby talked about planning, and Councillor Porter has responded very clearly. But the only other additional comment I would make is that I think if we weren't making these savings, Councillor Lumby would have seen the benchmark figures that say that our planning system is a lot more expensive than virtually every other council locally, and would be asking for cuts in it. It's really unfortunate that although finally we've had some recognition from Councillor Horrell that these are difficult times, we still have no constructive response from the opposition as to what the alternatives are, other than this vague view of there must be some other source of income. We know that the Strategic Asset Purchase Scheme, which was set up to create extra income, is still not delivering from all the purchases made by the previous administration. Circumstances have changed. For us to pile into ventures, spending money on ventures that we really have no clear idea of what the return would be madness at the moment. So this budget provides for a balanced budget which still gives us the flexibility to respond to events as we understand the changes brought about as we recover from the pandemic. So I will commend this and the recommendations to Cabinet.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cutler. I'm pretty sure that all Cabinet will endorse your comments there. So we now move to the recommendations, which are on pages 14 and 15 of the agenda pack. Are we agreed that the budget as set out can go forward to Council? Agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed.
That's great. Thank you very much. That's agreed. We now move to item number 9 on the agenda, which is the Capital Investment Strategy 2021 to 2031, pages 39 to 80. CAB 3283. Councillor Cutler, would you like to introduce the paper, please?
Thank you, Leader. It's me again. The Capital Investment Strategy sets out the Council's capital spending programme, and it details the overall spending programme for 10 years, where spending has been approved, and also indicative spending figures for spending subject to further appraisal. And it also shows how these will be financed, along with the impact on the medium-term financial strategy and the revenue budget. Cabinet is asked to recommend to Council approval of the Cabinet programme and the capital programme financing, along with the minimum revenue policy statement, the policy on flexible use of capital receipts and prudential indicators. The Cabinet is specifically asked to approve IMT expenditure of 534,000 and further 250,000 on essential repairs to the weirs, subject to the Council's approval of the capital programme. I wish to propose a change to recommendation 7. Now, I had new words from it. The good positive news is that we have actually been successful in our bid for the £260,000 from the Salix Decarbonisation Fund. So we do need to change the recommendation. I will ask Lisa Kirkman to read out that change after I finish speaking. Cabinet, at the Scrutiny Committee meeting last week, it was pointed out that several of the projects in the Cabinet programme were not entirely funded by the Council and would bring in funding from other sources. For example, the decked car park at the Voltex site has secured £5 million from the LEP. I accept that it's not clear where there is external funding on the table at Appendix A, and we will look at improving the clarity of the paper where possible. It's far more difficult in the case of those areas where funding hasn't been secured, but we might expect some. I do, in answer to the comments from Christine Holloway from WINAC, I agree that perhaps the paper is not explicit and does not repeat the detail of the Council plan, which of course makes clear that the climate emergency and decarbonisation of the district is an overarching theme and a thread that runs through all the themes of the plan. The paper describes spending that fits entirely within the decarbonisation theme, but much of the other spending also includes significant contributions to carbon reduction. For example, the new build programme of 1,000 homes over 10 years will be building energy efficient homes. The park and ride at Voltex will not only have EV and solar PV, but will contribute to reducing traffic and improving air quality in the city centre. The pie charts and text perhaps do not give enough credit to the contribution to the capital programme we will make to carbon reduction targets, and I will seek to see if we can improve that explanation on the paper. In terms of the broader issue of schemes, we've tended not to, although the comments were made at scrutiny of where's the wow factor and where are the ambitious schemes, we've tended not to put things into the capital programme that are still part of a wish list until we have far firmer proposals. So I'm sure we will be coming forward with further proposals for capital expenditure, particularly on the climate change agenda. I'm happy to answer further questions, and Richard Botham and Neil Enkin are both here to answer any technical details. Perhaps Lisa, you could explain the change that needs to be made to recommendation 7.
Of course, Councillor Cutler. Thank you. Cabinet, if I can be clear, this is an amendment to recommendation 7 on page 40 of your agenda papers, and the amendment reads: delegates authority to the section 151 officer in consultation with the Cabinet member for housing and asset management to approve expenditure of up to 260,000 on decarbonisation works to city offices, as outlined in paragraph 11.2.2. to enter into the grant agreement with Salix and to implement the project, subject to a satisfactory business case and council approval of the capital programme. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Kirkman and Councillor Cutler. I've got 2 councillors who wish to speak on this item, and the first one is Councillor Godfrey.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And good morning to all listeners. The immediate challenges facing the council and the rest of the community in Winchester from a pandemic is significant, and I don't envy the officers having to put together a balanced budget for the revenue paper we've just been looking at. The City Council has a pivotal role in leading our community in these times of crisis, not least in providing facilities, amenities and infrastructure that the market are not in a position to deliver. And a capital budget is vital to this leadership role and providing the funding for the change. I commend the efforts being made through the HRA to deliver refurbishment and improvement to the council housing estate. I'm delighted that the Conservative commitment to deliver more council homes is being continued by this administration. And I wish this venture well. However, I can see nothing of this, this same kind in the general fund part of the capital budget. There are warm and reassuring words in the paper. Some of them seem very familiar. As a brief example, in the risk section, reference is made to investment in our assets to increase income. And in section 11.1.4, the need to maximise investment to replace government grant. I think this is extremely sensible. But the delivery of that through the capital budget is no further mentioned. There's no use of the strategic asset purchase scheme this year, and I doubt next year. There are no projects to exploit our major property assets. Councillor Lenny calls it cautious. I would suggest that it's wasting hundreds of thousands of pounds on business rates, on security, on maintenance of our empty properties, like the Friarsgate surgery, of the old depot, of the River Park Leisure Centre, of a goods shed, or the buildings on the Broadway. Why are we not running up projects to invest in these assets to make sure that not only do they bring some reduction in the loss or hopefully income into the council, but running projects that will bring investment, employment, amenities to the district. We're spending £100,000 less each year, according to this budget, on our property assets than when the late Freddie Allgood first introduced the asset reserve 13 years ago. And that is a disgrace. We need to invest in our assets to make sure they do not deteriorate, that we get the most out of our very important assets, which the capital programme must be protecting. And I can see no other projects that the Conservative administration, which is now almost 2 years ago, did not start, apart from unspecified work to deal with the climate emergency. My vision for the capital budget is for it to be used to lead the change with medium and long-term projects that provide the district with a way forward. I would be very grateful to know what this paper is, what the vision is for this capital strategy and how that is going to be delivered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Godfrey. I now call on Councillor Miller.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to speak. there are several things in this paper that I welcome, particularly comments like 2.7 that established that the strategic asset purchase scheme was, as well as aiming to make a return, was actually partly to have achieved the council's aims and objective, and that all the projects didn't necessarily have to make significant returns. A good example of this would be Unit 12, which was bought mainly so that the facilities at Unit 12, the excellent dancing and all the other facilities there, would be kept going when Hampshire County Council withdrew their funding. Unit 12 has done a great job, and as you recently mentioned, has done a great job during this pandemic. So not all of the strategic asset purchases were to make significant returns. Of course, some of them were, and some of them will do in due course when the projects actually get to the end. It's very nice to see that the Dean is still in the programme, and it's very nice to see the Vortex car park come forward. It was bought with a view to be in the short term to achieve extra car parking and part of the movement strategy, but long term was to put a multi-storey car park on it anyway, and due to the high efforts of the officers and the extra funding coming from the LEP, funding has been secured to that. So again, I welcome that, but I am worried that so many of the other projects are still dithering around, not being brought forward, and therefore costing the council lots of money with the interest that's being incurred. Station Approach, you haven't even bothered to secure a planning application which would secure its value. You don't really seem to have a plan for what you're doing to it, so we're just burning money up there. Again, I think the same as Central Winchester, we bought it with a view to the bus station as short-term and long-term development, but it's taking far too long for it to come forward. I welcome the fact that the Bishop's Wharton Depot is finally going to start, but yet again, it has slipped by several weeks. All the programmes seem to be slipping all the time. It's despairing to see how much money has been spent on interest due to delays and dithering. I also welcome to see that 11.53 mentions the asset challenge that the Conservatives started, and I wondered, could we please have an update of how that is going, on what is it, or when we will see some results from the latest version of that. I think that's it, because Councillor Godfrey covered several of my other points. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miller. Just like to make a few comments there on following up the points, some of the points that were made by the last two speakers. We have been in the middle of a pandemic, and it has been extremely difficult to cope with dealing with that pandemic and keeping our residents safe, then helping our businesses to open up and our high streets to open up in a safe and controlled way, and then being shut down again. It has been an extremely difficult time, and officers and staff have been flat out on dealing with that. And I'd also like to say that two of the sites that Councillor Godfrey mentioned, the old depot site, well, Wilmot Dixon are still there at the moment whilst they build the new leisure centre, so that's that can't go anywhere until that situation changes. And also River Park, well, that's still the leisure centre. It may be closed at the moment, but that is our leisure centre. So until we are able to move to the new one, then that does not really become available. Anyway, members of Cabinet, have you any comments to make or any questions? I'm not seeing any hands. So, Councillor Lerney.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I think there does seem to be some flip-flopping between advocating a fire sale of our assets at a time of great uncertainty and hanging on to them regardless. As mentioned with the general fund budget, we are taking a balanced approach to this, where we are proceeding with schemes where they make sense and going at a sensible pace with others. Station approach is actually a revenue raiser for the council at the moment. Once we start clearing it, then it won't be. And we do have to be aware that we do have to keep that flow of funding coming in. Similarly, in central Winchester, we don't want to lose assets, you know, that are currently bringing in funds until we're at a point where we're sure that we can progress and make money out of the scheme. You know, I mean, while the depot is currently being used by Wilmot Dixon, the previous administration could have sold it at any time after they took over in 2011. So that was always a possibility. The points Chris Holloway made earlier around the meeting our district carbon neutrality target were well made, but I think it's important to recognise that there's a much wider approach to this. We do have some direct role, but more importantly, we need to encourage and enable our households, our businesses, and other organisations operating within the district to make the changes that they need. Clearly, some of that will involve investment. I'm actually driven to despair, though, by things like the government, the news that's come out in the past couple of days that the government's withdrawn £1.5 billion worth of green homes grant funding, which would have helped ordinary householders make those changes to heat pumps and all of those kind of aspects. The council can't possibly replace that kind of level of funding, so we have to pull on the levers that we can do. There is significant funding for climate change within both our housing revenue account and within the capital programme, and I think it's really important that we push ahead with those schemes as fast as we can. I think with the housing revenue account money, that is supporting a considerable level of investment. We have over 5,000 homes in the district, and that will make a significant difference. In addition, through our housing programme, we're going to be building energy efficient homes, which are cheap to run, and we're moving towards lower carbon methods of construction. In addition, you know, certainly we hope in the time period we're looking at to be moving towards properly zero carbon homes, not just low carbon homes. So I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. Clearly there's a lot more to be done. But at a time, again, at a time of great difficulty where many councils are struggling, I think we should recognise that what we're putting forward is a prudent and sustainable capital programme, which isn't going to land this council in financial difficulty in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lerney. Any other questions at the moment? Councillor Cutler, you're going to sum up?
Yes, Leader. I mean, I make no apology for us being cautious. You know, at a time when the world is changing dramatically, to pile into new schemes that we would have absolutely no idea of how the world is changing would be reckless. Councillor Miller talks about strategic asset purchase scheme not into, you know, sort of having two purposes. Yes, it has two purposes, but it had been particularly sold on the fact that it should be a double win. In fact, in most cases, it's been a single win. And yes, there have been some good purchases that are useful for the community, but they are costing the council at a time when we have significant, as we've already discussed, revenue pressures. So, as I said at the beginning, I make no apology for us being cautious. A recent employment study just brought out by Push points out that in 2016, the proposal was for 600,000 square feet of new office space in the Push area. None of it's been built, and yet still the demand isn't there, and there is a viability gap of £5 per square foot between the rents achievable and the cost of producing. So it would be reckless of us to embark on schemes to build new facilities before we've done a full business case and understand the way the world has significantly changed. And we hope this will come clearer as we go through the year. I'll leave it there, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cutler. So if we could move to the recommendations then, please, that are on pages 39 and 40. And obviously with the change to recommendation 7 that was Mrs. Kirkman read out earlier, are we happy to agree those recommendations?
Agreed.
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 Thank you very much. Thank you. We now move on to item number 10, which is the Treasury Management Strategy 2021-22 CAB 3282, and it's Councillor Cutler again.
Yeah, you'll be getting sick of the sight of me here, but Treasury Management Strategy, we need to refresh every year. This iteration includes the updated information provided by our advisors, Arling Close, and following the scrutiny committee meeting, Neil Aitken has added a section 11.3 that shows clearly the changes to the paper, and I'll quickly run through those. And these are the text reflects the changes to the Public Works Loan Board lending criteria, which are pretty crucial change, which means that loans are no longer available to authorities planning to buy investment assets primarily for yield. This certainly cuts off one area that I know the opposition party have been very keen on the principle of, even though they've never really successfully implemented the practice of it. The other changes are that investment limits are amended to reflect the lower investment balances expected to be held, and also changes to the requirement to cap investments in money market funds at 50%. That's been removed under the advice of Arling Close, and in addition, there is the addition of a requirement that there must always be a minimum of 4 counterparties for liquid balances. Rob Starfast from Hampshire County Council is on the call and would be available to answer technical questions on the Treasury Management Strategy.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cutler. We have no councillors wishing to speak on this item, but members of Cabinet, do you have any questions to raise? Any debate? No? In that case, I think we'll go straight to the recommendations then that are on.
Councillor Porter's got a comment.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Porter.
No, it's absolutely fine. Do carry on.
Oh, okay. All right. Recommendations are on page 81 and 82. Are we happy to agree them?
Agreed.
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 Lovely. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's agreed. Item number 11. Which is the Housing Revenue Account, Hra Budget 21-22, and procurement of term maintenance contracts. It's on pages 109 to 128 and it is CAB 3290. Councillor Lerney, would you like to introduce the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'm really pleased to be able to bring forward a housing revenue account budget and a 10-year plan which is ambitious, sustainable and prudent, and puts the needs of tenants, both current and future, at its heart, while aligning with the Council's carbon reduction priority. The budget is based on a rent increase in line with the government's national rent standard of 1.5%. This will increase average council rents for our 5,000 tenants by £1.56 per week, from £103.67 to £105.23. To improve our current housing, we plan future investment in major repairs of 70 million, estate improvements and sheltered housing upgrades of 4.3 million, disabled adaptations of 9 million, fire safety work of 1.6 million, and much needed investment in the sewage treatment infrastructure of 1.4 million. We have responded to tenant feedback on the services provided by our contractors and proposed to extend the maintenance contract with Osborne for a further 5 years while retendering the heating appliance servicing and repair contract. In addition, we have been considering the extra help we can offer tenants at what is such a difficult time. The increasing financial pressure in our communities is illustrated by the large increase in tenants receiving universal credit, and the COVID crisis has also increased the level of mental health issues, which are so distressing to tenants, their families and neighbours, and make keeping a roof over your head so much more difficult. Our budget proposals are sustainable over the 30-year business plan, and healthy balances can be maintained throughout that period. Taking account of those balances, I would like to bring forward further proposals for additional support for tenants who need it most. In addition to measures to improve tenants' mental health, that might include financial support through additional hardship schemes and welfare assistance, personal support to help tenancies or find employment. Rather than be prescriptive about what those measures will be at this point, it is essential that we first work with our tenants to establish what will work best and help them most. I'm therefore proposing an additional recommendation to the paper, which is that an additional one-off sum of £0.5 million funded from the existing HRA balance be set aside to fund additional support for council tenants, and that officers bring forward formal proposals in July 2021 following discussions with TACT and tenants. So I hope Cabinet members will support that change. Looking to meeting our future housing needs, we plan to take full advantage of the new freedoms and flexibilities offered through prudential borrowing and very low rates of interest to fund the delivery of an additional 1,000 well-designed, energy-efficient, affordable homes in the district over the next 10-year period. Land is becoming the major constraint on this area of work, and we have included provision for land purchase, as well as setting aside an additional £500,000 for nitrate mitigation. Moving towards both the council and district carbon neutrality goals, we propose to increase the funding for climate change initiatives over the next 10 years to £15.7 million, creating a new energy officer post to support this area of work. I would like to finish by thanking officers for their hard work in putting this budget and the business plan that underpins it together. I'd also like to thank the members of TACT for their continued work in a very difficult year, and I really do look forward to a time when I can sit down with them in a real room rather than meeting virtually like this. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lerney. And it seems an opportune moment to, I know we're joined by Monica Gill from TACT and David Light, and I just wondered whether either of them would like to make a comment at this stage.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mr. Johnson did attend a TAC meeting and fully explained the budget. We will support, especially the additional money for, which Councillor Lerner has just said, for hardships, you know, people with mental health and that. We really welcome the fact that you're setting aside at least 10 million for to purchase new land. The only thing that came up at TACT was that we rather thought that as you own Bar End Depot, when that comes available, that could probably be set aside for housing. I'm sure Mr. Palmer and his team would actually rub their hands together if they could get a site like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your contribution. That's great. I have one councillor who would like to speak. Councillor Horrell.
Chairman, thank you for allowing me to speak again this morning. And as you all know, I am an advocate for the housing team and their work here at Winchester City Council. We have an outstanding record of delivering for our tenants across the district, and I congratulate the officer team on all they have done in the last year in very difficult circumstances. Much of this report I wholeheartedly embrace, but there are 2 or 3 elements that I'm afraid I cannot. The proposed rent increase of 1.5% is concerning at a time of significant pressures on families, and therefore I welcome the commitment made following our recent discussion at scrutiny and the Business and Housing Policy Committee to set aside a hardship fund for those under pressure. And I'm grateful for Councillor Lerner indicating this morning that the recommendations today will be amended to reflect this agreement. It is welcome that this paper contains details about the much needed new homes in the district, but we have yet to see and review a copy of the development strategy that sits alongside this. We had a brief cursory slide or two at a recent meeting, and that is it. For one of the most significant commitments in budget terms in the council, of over 25 million for capital for this strategy of new homes, it is really lamentable and absolutely unacceptable that a poor oversight actually, that this strategy has not been made available to all of us to review in advance. We support the 1,000 new homes target we introduce. The budget allows for £10 million to purchase land. But without a development strategy, we do not understand what and where. That is a lot of money that is being committed without the slightest reference to the plans behind it. So can I say again that for the most significant budget commitments in the council of £25 million for new homes, not having seen the development strategy and making that available is unacceptable to us all. Why is it that the council wants to increase headcount to recruit an energy officer whose work will be crucial to developing the carbon reduction programme, yet sees fit to remove an outreach worker from the budget without having an alternative process in place? And that's the key thing. We don't have an alternative on the table. Our work with the homeless is a statutory duty. Outreach is fundamental to that, but not working out how to provide a better service, working with our partners, which I believe is the intention, before taking a head out of the budget is shocking and simply wrong. Today, you are approving some significant changes to the HRA budget, our approach to borrowing, a significant increase in borrowing, our viability assessment methodology, and residual value of housing. But what is not clear to me is why these changes will collectively make things better for our tenants overall. Maybe the portfolio holder can tell us what specifically the tenants will get out of this. The way in which some of these decisions are being taken today falls short of the way we as a council should be scrutinising some elements of one of the most important areas of our work, housing. It falls short given the significance of the HRA budget, and you know that many of the councillors have been raising with you the decision process for housing over the last few months, and I urge you to reconsider how this is done so that we can all rally behind such a significant part of the council's work, one that we can all be proud of and all be reassured that we have all the right strategies and policies in place to support these decisions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Horrell. Cabinet, have you any questions on the paper or any comments to make in the light of the two speakers we've had? Councillor Cutler, you've still got your camera on, by the way. Councillor Porter.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really pleased to support this budget. Councillor Loney and I have talked many times about the need for neighbourhood services to go out, the great advantage that our residents, our tenants have if they are with the City Council, because we have really strong mental health support, really strong physical support, really strong work with tenants to make sure that they feel safe in their own homes and that they're contacted, and really priority if we think that those tenants are at risk, and dealing with matters right at the early start rather than waiting until they get to a point where they're really struggling and risk their own tenancy. So I'm really pleased to support this. It not only deals with that very well by this additional sum of money, but also looking at trying to make those homes as efficient as possible to live in, as well as tackling the purchase of new land potentially for new homes, and also as the Cabinet member trying to wrestle with the problem of nitrates, actually having to unfortunately allocate a sum of money for that as well shows really far-reaching thoughts of how we're going to manage to deliver these houses and not just plan them. So I really welcome this actual paper, and I will certainly be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Porter. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Leader. I also wanted to speak in support of this paper, particularly the additional funding that we're putting into retrofitting our council stock. One of the things we know is that fuel poverty is something that affects the most disadvantaged groups in our community. The cost of energy, paying for your energy bills and your other utilities can be as much as a third of anyone's income. So the work that we're doing in this area, not only to reduce our carbon, but also to reduce fuel poverty, is going to be really important. And I also welcome the fact that we are actually putting in place a new post for an officer in the housing team to work directly on this issue and to make sure that we bring this forward, these changes forward as quickly as possible to give those benefits to our tenants. I really welcome the 500,000 fund that's being put in place to support our council tenants during this really difficult period. And I've been quite horrified to look at the change in the number of council tenants who've had to go onto universal credit at this time. I can only imagine the difficulties that they face and some of the issues that will be worrying them at this time. We are in a pandemic. We have been in a pandemic for 12 months and we continue to be in a pandemic. And it's the council's forward-looking approach in supporting our tenants with this measure, which is going to be really important to them. I also welcome the money that we're putting aside to buy new land, because our ambitions isn't just to keep building new council homes, but to keep building affordable homes at a social rent. Because again, we know going forward that those are going to be really important to people in the district. So I welcome this paper and I commend the Cabinet member and the officers who put this together. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Any further contributions from Cabinet members? No. In that case, could we please move to the recommendations on page 110? Oh, Councillor Lenny, you want to say a few words? Sorry.
Yeah, if I can just respond.
Yes.
I think the development strategy was presented to business and housing at a very early stage in order that they could actually have a proper debate on that policy before it was a fully worked through fait accompli almost. We're often being asked that members get the opportunity to do these things at an early stage. It is unfortunate that the timing has meant that it hasn't come back properly as a formal paper, and we're definitely looking at the timing of when things come forward in future. That development strategy is important, but it will not be site specific at this point. The land provision that we're making is so that we do have the opportunity for when the chance to buy land comes forward. It could, for example, include part of somebody else's development site. It could include a site that we purchase from the general fund, you know, such as Bar End, although I think Bar End is unlikely to provide an affordable option for that. But it is something that was brought up at TACT, but we do need to be clear that the council could not give that land to the HRA. It would have to be bought. We are very keen to keep working with our existing tenants to make sure that we do things that really work for them. It's important to say that the new homes programme does not take money away from existing tenants. Not only does each scheme financially stand for itself, but going back to building houses is enabling us to build back in those economies of scale, which have been whittled away over time through the Right to Buy programme and the inability to replace those homes that we've lost. So I think together with the new recommendation that's put in, this budget does offer considerable benefit to tenants, not only our existing tenants, but it also will give more people in the future the opportunity to become council tenants and have the security that that implies. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lerney. So if we could move to the recommendations now on page 110 and 111, and we have an additional recommendation. I'll read it out just for clarity. That an additional one-off sum of £0.5 million be funded from the existing HRA balance be set aside to fund additional support for council tenants, and that officers bring forward formal proposals in July 2021 following discussions with TACT and tenants. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
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 Lovely, thank you very much, that's agreed. Okay, we now move to item 12, CAB 3286, the annual council plan refresh. And this falls to me to introduce this paper. So here we go. It has been through scrutiny, as you know, and they had no particular comments to make on it. So I believe this refresh is very timely. The world in which we drew up our original council plan has completely changed, and as we work through the effects of the pandemic, it has understandably had an impact on how we can move forward and deliver the changes we all want to see. It's really important to say that this is a refresh and not a rewrite, and our priorities have not changed. and are still the same. Tackling the climate emergency, ensuring we have the right homes in right places, creating a vibrant local economy across our district, reducing health inequalities, and delivering good value, high quality services. And although many things have changed, the climate emergency hasn't disappeared. So whether it's strengthening our local plan policies by promoting low carbon sustainable development that encourages walking and cycling and less dependency on the car, or supporting our businesses when in recovery post-COVID and helping them embrace and encourage green growth, and increasing the energy efficiency of our own council homes and those that we are building, the climate emergency continues to sit at the heart of all we do. Our challenging aims to make the council carbon neutral by 2024 and the wider district by 2030 remain, and we have made good progress towards these goals. So what's new in this plan? Well, in this refresh, you will see that in each of the sections, we have set out what we've achieved so far. It isn't a full account of all that we've done, as space precluded this, but it does form a handy reminder of just how much we've achieved in a relatively short space of time, and of course in the face of a national public health crisis. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to say a brief word on each of the sections. In tackling the climate emergency, for example, you will see that amongst other things, we have successfully cut the council's carbon footprint by 468 tonnes, introduced a green electricity tariff for all our operational buildings, secured over £5 million of LEP money to build a new park and ride facility, complete with solar PV and EV chargers down at Bar End. Going forward, we want to encourage more renewable energy generation. We want to work with Hampshire County Council to deliver the Winchester Movement Strategy and deliver the actions in our Biodiversity Action Plan. Living well, we have successfully worked with partners and reacted quickly to the COVID-19 pandemic, building and supporting community networks. Continued construction of the new Winchester Sport and Leisure Park throughout the pandemic, a huge achievement in the circumstances. We kept most of our public toilets and open spaces open during the lockdowns, and we've issued £500,000 of grant support to key voluntary organisations. We are now focusing on producing our local plan with policies that promote healthy lifestyles and ensure those policies promote low carbon development with sustainable travel and increased biodiversity. We want to maintain and enhance our open spaces and parks and enable and promote safe cycleways and pathways to encourage more walking and cycling. Under Homes for All, we made over 600 calls to our elderly and vulnerable tenants, completed 12 new homes and are on site with 119 new homes at Stanmore, Kingsworthy and Week. We've grant funded a number of housing projects and ensured our homeless were provided with COVID secure accommodation. This year, we want to continue our new build programme. We want to use our new Winchester Housing Company to deliver a range of housing tenures to meet local needs, and we want to improve the energy efficiency of new and existing homes. The local economy. We awarded over £30 million of support of grants to support businesses throughout the pandemic. We've set up a business helpline and regular business bulletins. We supported businesses to open safely through our Back to Business campaign. We helped to create outside seating in the city and our market towns to support social distancing, and we relocated Winchester street markets successfully to the Broadway. We want to work with our key stakeholders to ensure Winchester becomes a centre for the creative industries and that we increase opportunities for high quality, well-paid employment across the district. We will be focusing on a green recovery post-COVID and and will be supporting businesses to meet the challenge of carbon neutrality. On Your Services, Your Voice, we focused on business as usual during the pandemic and kept our telephone lines open, kept our waste collection going when many others didn't, and collected more waste and recycled more of it and expanded glass collection services. We rolled out at pace remote working. We moved council meetings online and simplified our complaints policy. Going forward, we want to continuously improve our processes, making sure we involve the public, businesses, stakeholders and ward councillors earlier in the decision-making process. We want to embed partnership working. We want to focus on accessibility and inclusiveness and invest in our staff to make the most of their skills. So as I've said before, this plan refresh has been through scrutiny. Last week, there were no specific comments to make. I will finish there, but there is so much more I could say. But in closing, I would like to thank officers and staff for their help in producing this refresh. I know it hasn't been an easy process with meetings being online, and I and all members of Cabinet really appreciate the help and support that you have all given under very difficult circumstances. I would just also like to say that although the recommendation is to agree the onward progression of the council plan refresh to council, on reading through the document, there are a few tweaks and tenses that need improving. So I would just like to add a final recommendation, which gives me the authority, along with the appropriate officer, to amend the text where appropriate for any minor amendments that need to take place, just to ensure that it reads well and that all the tenses are correct. So thank you very much, officers. And I have two councillors who wish to speak on this item. And the first one is Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Chairman, Leader, for allowing me to speak. This is an interesting document, and as you quite rightly have said, is a refresh on what you've had gone before. But it's an interesting refresh. There are one or two anomalies, as you quite rightly say, which I think deserve tweaks. And really some of those tweaks perhaps I'm going to be mentioning now. But I don't have page numbers on the copy of this document. I'm looking at Appendix 1 in particular. I'm curious by the choice you are talking about, which refers to recovery of the local economy or choosing where we build affordable houses. Rather a peculiar choice to make. I would have thought both are important, but as Chris Holloway said, it's curious in that your concentration, your oft repeated concentration during this meeting and other meetings, that climate change and the environment should be priorities, that doesn't come through in this document. You've said yourself there've been no change to priorities, but that is not quite clear what your priorities are here. You're trying to cover everything, correct? And it's very difficult to say what you shouldn't cover. But I think in these very difficult times, and you mention on page 3 of the document, Brexit is difficult. I don't know what that has got to do with this document. If you'd said COVID and its impacts on the economy, I could understand it, because you repeat frequently through the document about the issues that you've got to deal with related to the pandemic, and quite rightly so. The maintenance of high quality services while balancing the council budget is an incredibly difficult task. And I can see from the previous papers an increase in council tax, again by 3%, increase in fees and charges, again by 3%. Prudential borrowing, interesting word prudential, but yes, careful, I guess it means. Use of your reserves, and now positive news about Salix funding, which is an interest-free loan, remember. It is not a grant, it's a loan which has to be paid back, and I understand it's a pound for pound. Now, from what your paper says, much of that loan is going to go into the Guildhall and perhaps the toilets, public toilets, all worthy aims, but I can't limit as to what that is going to do for the environment. It may well help to combat, to an extent, the climate change, but I'm not quite sure whether it's a flagship thing there. You refer to the air we're breathing, which, yes, an important thing, and a recent report from the United Nations says that the loss of life as a result of air pollution is actually much greater than most people have anticipated or thought previously, and that really does ginger up. You refer that that means you're going to concentrate again on Winchester, because that's something else, again, as somebody from the rural areas I look at. What is this? Is this for the districts, or is this just Winchester City itself? And much of this is actually related to Winchester City. I looked at the positive things. Yes, there's a parking gain in Alresford. Yes, there's employment gain in Bishop Waltham. But employment gain, well, 15 people, 20 people perhaps, that's hardly going to make a big impact on Councillor Ferguson's portfolio. So I'm not quite sure whether I should be grinning about that, other than the fact that it is actually a positive thing. You refer to climate change, extreme climate events. Planning is still working on 100-year storms. Actually, we were told several years back, it should be now 1 in 80-year storms. You correctly referred to the positive biodiversity action plan, but there's nothing in here. Obviously, it is linked with the environment, that, and excellent, and I praise that. And as you well know, I've long been in favour of that, but that's only well and good if that is supported by the planning department. Now, it's not necessarily a criticism of the planning department, but up until this point, they have been much more urban-centric rather than landscape-centric, as, for example, the National Park is. So this sort of thing, dependent a lot on loans, a lot on prudential borrowing, a lot on increased tax, but it's very difficult, other than production of virtual reality, of leaflets, of consultation, what actually is being done. There are some things here. Yes, of course there are. Flood alleviation scheme. That is positive. One can see that. Have I overspoken again?
I'm afraid you have.
Okay. Well,
So-
obviously, I will say a little more in council, so I will stop at that point. I think you've got the message. I like what you put forward, but, and it's the but that worries me, as it worries Christine Holloway. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pearson. Can I now call on Councillor Reid?
Thank you and good morning to you all. I would like to thank you for the opportunity of saying a few words with regard to the annual council plan 2021-22. This year's refresh has been set in hugely different conditions to the previous years owing to the current pandemic. Listening to the World Service this morning saying it is expected to last for a further 2 years in the developed part of the world, and in the third world they are predicting some 10 years of it to go. Over the past year we have seen quite a different pattern in the way in which we conduct our day-to-day shopping and communications, which has been indicated in the Leader's Welcome Statement. I'm not going to cover the points raised by Councillor Pearson because that would be just using Pearson time again. However, on page 146, the third bullet point refers to New Winchester Housing Company, which talks of a wide range of housing to meet local needs. Will this scheme include bungalows around the district? Bungalows are very much sought after, especially by the more senior residents of our community. On pages 149 and 150, it was interesting to read that after nearly 2 years, you have agreed the concept of moving the market, the open market, into the Broadway. This was part of the Silver Hill Master Plan, published many years ago under a previous administration, so nothing new there then. It looks like the wheels are beginning to, I can't read my own word, renovate. How many more feasibility studies will be undertaken before a decision is made? I have already said that nearly 2 years since this administration has been in office, we do not appear to be any further forward with regards to any of the major decisions to be made. It is easy to blame the current pandemic. Many people are jumping on that particular bandwagon. To launch the Rediscover What's on Your Doorstep, which is encouraging residents to stay local, is a good idea. However, if we get to the redevelopment wrong within the major, it will be a major financial mistake and could take us many years to recover. Some years ago, I had the privilege to go and visit Whitefriars district of Canterbury, where it had gone horribly wrong. And within a very short period of time, they had to undertake a second redevelopment of that particular shopping area. It could be quite pricey to us if we do get this wrong. I would like to thank the staff for their input into this refresh. And once again, I would like to thank you, the Cabinet, for this opportunity of saying a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillors Pearson and Reid, for your contributions. Just a quick comment on both your thoughts. I mean, of course, this council plan, it's a very high-level strategic document. It won't go into all the details behind the items that we've outlined in it. It's very much a sort of headline and, as I said, high-level strategic document. In terms of does the plan reach out to the whole district? Well, of course it does. And it's a council plan for Winchester City Council and for the whole district. And of course, we want to encourage economic growth across the district, not just in Winchester. And I'm sure Councillor Ferguson will happily tell you all that she's doing to encourage development and growth within our market towns. We've set up all sorts of partnerships and for the first time also one in Whiteley, where Councillor Ferguson and officers have regular meetings now with the Whiteley folk, and it's really helping generate opportunities for just discussing well, what we're doing about the pandemic at the moment, but obviously it will help with the recovery too. So I'd just like to reassure everyone that it is a plan that reaches out to the whole district. Councillor Reid, you asked about the housing company. I don't know whether Councillor Lurnley might have anything to say regarding that and the types of housing that we are hoping to provide, but certainly we want the housing company to be able to step in where we know that the private sector won't build. We feel that we have an angle there that we can use to provide the type of housing that we know the private sector aren't interested in building. Cabinet members, have you any comments to make? Oh, two. Okay, Councillor Lerney first and then Councillor Porter.
Thank you. Certainly the intention with the housing company is to provide tenures and forms of housing that the market won't, and which aren't necessarily appropriate for us to build within the HRA with its, with the way we acquire tenants through that process. Initially, we are looking more to provide for the younger market, but the good thing about having the housing company is it will provide us that mechanism for branching out into other areas in the future as it seems fit. Right now, I'm not aware of any particularly appropriate opportunities to look at things like bungalows, which are a quite land intensive form of development. And also need to be in the right places, but certainly that's something that can be looked at in the future. The important thing is that we get it set up and running. I'd also like to refer to Central Winchester. I think Councillor Reid has no idea how difficult moving the market into the Broadway actually was. It actually took weeks and weeks of planning and negotiating with the county. And working on lots of detail, I think Councillor Todd did a sterling job there to actually get that done as quickly as it happened. But that is a case where we've taken advantage, of the COVID situation to make some changes. But it's also part of that incremental approach in line with the SPD that we're taking to the Central Winchester development, and that is supported within the budget, which will allow us to make short-term interventions which increase vibrancy on the site and the links to the high street while we progress on the main part of the scheme. I think it's also interesting that we've been criticised for putting forward proposals for Central Winchester which are too vague. But part of the point is retaining that flexibility. We know we have within the parameters that we've set out and the proposals that we've put forward, we have the ability to create a scheme which is viable, but we're aware that things will shift and we do need to keep that flexibility. All the property professionals that we're talking to are emphasising that need to be flexible, and not rush forward with anything at the current time, but progress as the market permits. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lerney. I then have Councillor Porter.
Thank you very much indeed. And I'm going to be talking just briefly about the Living Well section. It incorporates Councillor Prince's portfolio of responsibilities as well as some of mine, and I'm sure he'll want to say something too. But all the comments have been tended to be made about rather shiny, big capital type projects, and actually the functions of the council include environmental health, licensing, planning, of course, as we've mentioned, but animal welfare, neighbourhood services and much more. And those have carried on and taken the brunt of the epidemic or the pandemic really well, and it's just an opportunity to say thank you to them. They're not major capital expenditures, but they've just run them really well, and that's been an effort in itself when nobody's been in the same room and everybody's been working from home. But reflections of the outcomes of the last year during COVID have brought into sharp focus the real need to support the most vulnerable in our district, And I think it's come out in today's Cabinet meeting that we want to engage with a wider, a younger audience and a more diverse audience too. And our citizens are becoming increasingly diverse, and we really must be addressing that in a really positive way. So even more than ever, we recognise the value of the voluntary sector in supporting specific groups and in developing networks of people to support new ventures as well as they develop the need. And it's brought about a really much closer relationship with health providers than we've ever had before. So the role the council plays is effectively as a safety net for those residents, and we want to provide really to make sure that we work with partners, and we're trying to make sure that this council plan reflects the fact that we're an enabling council, because we know those partners know who they can actually get to help and how they have the expertise to support our citizens and their families. So one of the things about the Living Well section, it doesn't involve a huge amount of capital expenditure. It's just making sure that what we do it really well to support the residents in our district, and that's right across the district. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Porter. I support every word you said there. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Chairman. So I just wanted to address a couple of issues that Councillor Pearson raised. One was around the fact that we haven't got that sort of golden thread of tackling the climate emergency all the way through this council plan refresh. Certainly within the vibrant local economy section, we very much are looking at how we can support businesses to reduce their carbon footprint. In fact, our emphasis on commissioning the Green Economic Development Strategy is a key part of that. And in this refresh, we have added, we want that shift to a greener, more sustainable economy. The Green Economic Development Strategy will look specifically at how we can transition the district to a greener and more sustainable economy over the next 10 years to meet our very specific climate change ambitions. How do we support existing businesses as they make that move to more carbon reduction? But also, how do we attract new businesses within the green growth sectors? We specifically say we want to make sure we have a green recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic to build on some of the positive changes in working, travelling and shopping practices and patterns that we've seen, to support greater digital innovation, to in effect increase the district's economic resilience and also our climate resilience going forward. We know that the district has multiple strengths, and we know that we need to promote those better to attract more businesses either to relocate here or to set up here for the first time. Councillor Pearson also suggested that the support that we've been given has only been for the city. I really refute that suggestion. Indeed, the work that the local economy team has been doing to support all of our businesses during this 12-month period has been for the whole district. Councillor Thompson talked about the partnership working that we've set up, not only in the city, but with the market towns and with Whiteley. We have dedicated marketing support for those market towns. The grants that we've been administering have gone across the district. The support that we've been giving to our high streets has gone across the district. The e-commerce platform that we're now looking to launch is for businesses across the district. The support that we're giving to businesses in terms of business advice, tailored business support for those businesses on the high street or for any business that's looking for business support is across the district. And the work that we have commissioned with IncuHive is free for all businesses across the district. I think also our general marketing campaigns look at the strengths of the district. We prosper as a district as a whole, and we support the district as a whole. Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Leader. 2020 is on track to be one of the 3 warmest years on record. the average surface temperature across the planet was 1.25 degrees higher than pre-industrial levels, dangerously close to 1.5 degree target set by the Paris Agreement. And although global carbon emissions have dropped by an estimated 7% last year, we can't be complacent, because they will rebound once the pandemic ends, unless we focus our efforts on a green recovery. And that's why the climate emergency stays at the heart of our council plan. It not only has its own section, but is a major part of all the others. If our district is made more walking, cycling and public transport friendly, then we can make that long-term reduction in carbon we're aiming for. It will also help us keep the cleaner air we all appreciated so much during lockdown throughout the whole district. Electricity usage in our district is going to grow. Our encouragement of electric vehicles through our new charging points is only one example, and we only produce roughly 1/5 of the energy we consume as it is. So we desperately need to encourage more renewable energy generation in our district and become as self-sufficient as possible. But of course, we need to continue protecting our natural environment as well with our beautiful new biodiversity action plan. And luckily, the two aren't mutually exclusive. I'd like to thank Chris Holloway for her supportive comments. We do know that making existing buildings energy efficient is really important. And under the Homes for All section, we do refer to moving the energy efficiency of new and existing homes towards zero carbon. As Lisa's already pointed out, we were quite limited in our number of words, which is why we couldn't really go into too much detail in lots of things. And as Chris Holloway also says, we all need to work together to change our lifestyles and create a carbon neutral future. And I think this refreshed council plan gives us a way forward to do just that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. Are there any further comments? I can't see any other hands up. In which case, I'd just like to sum up by saying thank you to everyone who has contributed to the debate on this council plan refresh. Obviously, it will now go forward to council once we've agreed the recommendations. So thank you for your comments. And I'd now like to move to the recommendation on page 129, which obviously says that Cabinet approves the refreshed council plan priorities and recommends adoption by full council. In addition, I would just like an extra recommendation so that we can allow for sense checking, for instance, and the odd tweak to be made. And I believe the Chief Executive is just going to read out some words on that.
Thank you, Leader. May I suggest, Cabinet, that we add a recommendation that minor typographical corrections and manuscript updates be delegated to the Strategic Director Resources in consultation with the Leader. Thank you, Leader.
Okay. Cabinet, are we agreed?
Agreed.
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 Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. We've now just gone over the two-hour mark, but we've got two more important papers to take, which I think we should continue to look at. So apologies to anyone who has other meetings to go to, but we are obviously going to run over for a bit. Okay, so we come to item number 13, which is the minute extract from Winchester Town Forum held on the 28th of January 2021, pages 155 to 158. And Councillor Lerney, I believe, is going to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Leader. At its meeting on the 28th of January, the Town Forum discussed the progress it's making and the approach it's taking on the replacement of sports pavilions at both North Walls and King George V playing fields. The Forum continues to work with the Pavilion project to achieve a new cricket pavilion at North Walls and is now ready to move forward with the provision of a new pavilion at the King George V playing fields. This pavilion will provide a fitting centre for our women and girls football teams, as well as catering for the cricket pitches in the summer. consultation on the principle of the new pavilion and proposals for the wider King George V area, including a new playground and skate park, and increasing biodiversity on the site is already being undertaken. The Town Forum is not a formal decision-making body and requires Cabinet approval to spend the pre-construction funds required to get the new pavilion properly designed and planned for, but this is backed by town account funds, not the general fund. So I'm happy to move this minute and recommend that Cabinet approves it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lerney. Do we have any? Yes, actually, I've got a yes. Councillor Lumby, you wish to speak on this item. Sorry, I'm looking at too many bits of paper.
I may have enjoyed your propaganda broadcast for the last hour, but I'm still hanging in there. Thank you, Leader, and thank you for the opportunity to address Cabinet again. As you know, I have been a supporter of the North Wales Pavilion project. I'm also glad to see the continued support for the KGV Sports Pavilion. On the North Wales, I'm glad to see that the project is effectively a Winchester Town Forum risk rather than for the wider district. But can I ask, given the large amount of officer time spent on this, is an allocation of that time being charged back to the forum? And on the same topic, please can it be confirmed how much support financially is being given to the project from the council as opposed to the town forum? The reason I ask this is we have many cricket clubs across the district. You may be aware that Titchbourne, for example, is looking to upgrade its pavilion. And of course, we have the site of the oldest cricket club in the world at Hambledon. Will the portfolio holder confirm that similar levels of support and officer time will be provided to projects for pavilions and other facilities outside the city? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Lumby. As is made clear that this paper specifically is relating to two areas of the city, and one in particular that will be the funding comes from the Town Forum. Councillor Lerney.
Thank you, Leader. If you look at the two projects, the North Wales project is funding is currently partly from the community, and but the remainder entirely comes from within town funds, including the community portion of the SIL funding. The King George V playing field is a slightly different proposition in that it is actually the district centre for women's and girls football. Almost all of those matches take place in that area, and they do consider it their home. So it is a district facility. Currently, there are no district funds proposed for it. However, the Town Forum will be making a request for some district SIL funding to reflect the fact that it is a district facility, not just a town facility. Any sports facilities in the district that are in a similar position of providing that district function, not just the local function, would of course be welcome to make a similar application.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lerney. Councillor Porter.
Just for information, really, Leader, the SIL applications which come in from right across the district have included quite a few applications for sports pavilions and sports facilities, and we're always very happy to listen and receive those applications. And in fact, we have spent quite a lot of money, and so we added an additional £250,000 for this year's applications, and for next year's another 250 for next year's applications is expected to follow that on, to make sure that we use the SIL as wisely as we can right across the district, trying to make sure that we go for the areas where people tend to group together to play a sport and take part in activity. So I can assure all members that actually SIL applications for sports pavilions are accepted are certainly very happy to receive them from right across the district. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Porter, for that clarification. I'm not seeing any further hands up, so I wonder whether we could go straight to the recommendation that we consider and determine the matters set out in the minute extract below. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
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 Thank you very much. Okay, we now move on to item 14, which is the Meadowside Leisure Centre update on operator tender, Cabinet 3285 on page 159 of the agenda pack. And Councillor Prince, I believe you're moving this this paper.
I am, but I just want to say a few words first. In terms of listening to the meeting today, I do get the feeling that you've confirmed my views that the need for leisure facilities across the district, be they small, be they large, etc., is something this council needs to provide as we progress out of the pandemic. I see it on a day-to-day basis just by people participating. It is essential for the health and well-being, in my view, for just the general people in the population. Not everybody's going to be so fortunate as we would hope. Anyway, turning to the Meadowside, the paper for Meadowside focuses on the tender for operating the centre and the improvements to be made. At this difficult time for leisure centres, we've had 2 tenders from everyone active to be the operator. The decision to progress Meadowside to the tender stage was taken by Cabinet back on December the 23rd, 2020. Key aspects of the tender are that it will be for a minimum period of 10 years, with an optional extension of 5 years. The initial capital cost to the council will be £300,000, an annual management charge of £56,000. This includes interest and capital repayment. Because it's capital funded, it's the repayment that £56,000 is focusing on. The cost of a new bespoke centre would have been circa 11 million. I am delighted that the investment will enhance the sport and leisure facilities in the southern parishes. I'm a big supporter of the southern parishes and Meadowside. I've been several times to Meadowside and been amazed how well used it is, for which there is a known demand. I'm just stressing there is a known demand for Meadowside. It supports our health and well-being strategy. The enhancements will provide more space in addition to meeting COVID-19 requirements. The latest gym equipment is included, and the Whiteley Town Forum will retain office and meeting space. So I think we're incorporating a good deal of the needs that are required by the community and enhancing the already well-used facility. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Prince. Now, I have Councillor Lumby, who I know wishes to speak on this item. Councillor Lumby, we also have an exempt appendix. I've got you down to speak on that as well. obviously that will mean that we will have to go into exempt if you want to stray onto those areas. But I'm just checking first. I'm just checking first.
Leader, we seem to have been in the same place in the last two cabinet meetings, don't we?
Yes.
It's me at the end and the exempt.
Yes.
As it happens, I think in this occasion as well, we are able to dispense with the exempt if you don't have a need for it. I personally can cover my comments in the open session, and I have no need to go into that financial detail. So if you feel that you don't need to use it, I'm happy also to go that way.
I think Cabinet would be happier if we just kept in open session as much as we can, actually. So
the lure of their lunch is probably stronger, isn't it? That's bizarre for exempt. Yes.
Well, we did start off this meeting originally at 9:30, so it's been quite a long haul. Anyway, I think if you could then just concentrate your remarks in the open section, that would be great, and that would be helpful. Thank you.
That's fine. Thank you. And so therefore, thank you for the final opportunity to address Cabinet today. Can I also actually thank all the officers, Mr. Bradfield, Mr. Hickman in particular, who were kind enough to spend time talking Councillor Horrell and myself through this proposal in advance and answering our various questions. It was incredibly useful and actually very much dispense with the need to go into exempt at this stage. So please can we encourage more of that? It was really, really good. Thank you actually also for Councillor Prince for emphasising just now the importance of access to leisure centres and sporting activities right across the district, and its importance to people's health and well-being. He has no doubt told you is a much greater athlete than me, but even me, it's great to get out and do stuff, and I think for everybody that's a really important thing. I would therefore welcome a chance to discuss with him ideas on what more we can do on this outside the city and out in the rural areas once the pandemic allows. Just having the Meadowside Leisure Centre for itself is not the end of the road. There's so much more that we should be thinking about and potentially doing. That said, Meadowside is a really important facility, and I was, as you recall, alarmed at the initial suggestions that it might be closed. I'm very pleased that that whole idea is gone and that we as a council remain committed to it. I do note, however, at 11.27 on page 168 that additional costs above forecast on the interim arrangements have been incurred. This was something that I flagged at the time, in particular the dangers of an open-ended underwrite, and sure enough that has come to pass. Putting this contract in place will hopefully bring that to an end as far as Meadowside is concerned, but obviously that liability and concern will run on River Park. That said, I also think it's a bit odd in the section covering the interim position on Meadowside that we have reference to unexpected maintenance works at River Park. It's really important that we do view this as a separate leisure centre and not forever draw ourselves back to the city, nor that we think that in some way the new leisure centre in Winchester solves the issues and the demand across the whole district. I think Councillor Prince has confirmed that's the thinking as well. We do need to keep a separate focus on the wider district, including the southern parishes and Whiteley. So I support this proposal, and investing to make the centre better is to be welcomed. Cabinet will also recall my endless questioning about progress over the last year or so on the works being undertaken there that we were doing as a council. And again, I'm really pleased that progress made on these as well. It has felt at times like hard work to draw attention away from the city and to keep a level of focus on this centre. Hearing you refer to the Whiteley folk earlier, Leader, suggests we may have some way to go along this line. But anyway, now we've reached this stage, please do not think you can now forget about Whiteley. We will be here to remind you, and I'm sure you will continue keeping it in your focus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lumby. I see that Councillor Cutler has his hand up. I would just like to just check with Cabinet, actually, because obviously I made that statement earlier about not needing to go into exempt, but I just wanted to check that there were no members of Cabinet that wish to ask any questions on the exempt. I see that Councillor Prince is shaking. I don't believe that there are. Okay, Councillor Cutler, you had your hand up, or it seems to have disappeared.
Yes, just a couple of responses to Councillor Lumby. Really, he persists with this this talk about the potential for the Meadowside being closed last year. It was, as we had to do in any appraisal, one of the options. It was not an option that was considered for very long, and he's attempted to make huge political capital out of this over the last year, and is really quite a nonsense. And he also makes the point that he will continue to keep us on our toes about the remembering the southern parishes, forgetting the fact that we are being kept on our toes by our own councillors in the southern parishes, where we have significant numbers. We have 6 councillors in this area who keep Cabinet constantly reminded of the importance of the southern parishes. So to suggest that he's the only one doing it, I think, is a little bit over the top. But then again, that seems to be his approach at the moment. So I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members of Cabinet, any other comments to make? Any debate? No? Councillor Prince, are you happy that I move to the recommendations?
Leader, please move to the recommendations. I'm reassured that people are supportive of this initiative on the whole, I believe.
Thank you, Councillor Prince. Yes, we are. So recommendations are on page 160. Obviously, we need to note that we've taken account of the figures set out in the exempt paper. Are we happy to agree the recommendations as set out?
Agreed.
Agreed. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Those are all agreed. The next item is item number 15, the forward plan, and we're asked to note the forward plan coming up for March 2021. Are we happy to note that?
Agreed.
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 Thank you very much. Whew, it's now 12:20, and I think it's been quite a long haul this morning with the false start because of the technical problems early on. But can I thank everyone who's made contributions to the meeting this morning. I think we've got through a lot of business today. So thank you for all your time and your patience, and look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Goodbye, Leader.